But most of the people I met who are deeply successful, they are humble. They are always out to help people. They're always out to mentor people.
Yeah.
And they are always giving advice. I try to do a little bit of that. I give unsolicited advice all the time. And I know maybe out of the 10 advice I give, 9 of them will be disregarded, or people will like, what are you trying to do? That's not what I'm seeking. But I know that out of the 10, there'll be one advice that will land successfully, that people will appreciate, and that will help someone. And I think that's enough.
So, hi, Chun Wee. First of all, we met at World Congress of Accountants last year. And I found you at the panel where you were so energetic, so passionate. And I was 100% sure that you are going to be a real asset, an amazing speaker for this show. So thank you for accepting my invite and being here.
Well, thank you so much, Shubham. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you. I only apologize that we've taken so long to get this worked out, but happy to be finally here.
No problem at all. I know your schedule is so extremely busy. So I'm hopeful and I'm so gratitude that you could take out some time. Now, definitely you're doing a lot of things, but what inspires you to keep going every single day?
Well, that is actually a really, really good question. And I think all of us need to do that, to sometimes take a pause and reflect on ourselves, reflect on our passion, reflect on our passion for work, for relationship, and so on. And thanks for sending through that question in advance, because that got me thinking a little bit. Just to set maybe the context to that, I'll just take you through very briefly my work history, maybe.
Sure.
So I've been working for a quarter of a century. So that's not too long, that's not too short. But for some or most people, that is about half or more than half of a career. And I spent half of that in a professional services firm. I was in Deloitte. And then the second half with a professional accountancy organization, working for the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA. And I would say, there are many factors that kept me passionate and excited, energized. And part of it is the hygiene factors, like everyone, putting food on the table, having a roof over the top. I think that's the hygiene factor, and that has to be fulfilled. But beyond that, there are many other factors as well. For the purpose of our conversation, let's maybe just look at two things. One of which is diversity. Variety. And the second one is meaning, purpose. Right. And I think I have been really fortunate, even though it's just two different organizations, I've found just great variety of things that I've been able to work on in this quarter of a century in my career. And a lot of it gives me meaning and purpose, because it is allowing me through the work to contribute to something. So there is meaning in that work. And that's what kept me energized. So when I was with Deloitte, I started with audit, and that is one career that I always encourage people to think about, because I find it really interesting and exciting. You're given the license to be nosy. You get to go into different entities and to look at how things get done, their business strategy. You get to talk to people from the most senior to the most junior. I love talking to the tea ladies, for example, because sometimes through those conversations, you get to know things that you don't get from talking to the CEO or CFOs. So that's all really exciting. And you get to learn so much so quickly, right? And that's great. And then midway through my career in Deloitte, I was transferred to what we call a professional practice department. And that's a little bit more technical. You get to look into sort of like review what's behind all these things that you do, the technical bits, and you look at quality, what defines quality, what is good engagement, what is perhaps not so great engagement, and you get to share good practices, and you get to look at, what perhaps is not working so well and look into solutions for that. And as part of that job, I get to really speak to a lot of people, do external and internal training, and I get to really go back to fundamental about what makes a good audit, for example. And that's really fulfilling for me. And then moving on to ACCA, and I've been with the organization for more than 12 years. I would say every single year is different. There's always something different because in the field of policy, what you're really looking at is what's driving changes in the profession, right? What should people be thinking about? We're thinking ahead on behalf of our members, on behalf of the profession at large. And business environment, the profession is always evolving, and that keeps things really fresh as well. So fantastic, just in terms of the diversity of experience that I get to have. And that keeps me really motivated. And I mentioned meaning as well, because it is, well, the profession is a very meaningful profession because we are working in the public interest. And I know people say that all the time, but really thinking about it, you keep the capital market transparent, and you keep everything stable, right? And you are being that ethics call, you are being that independent individual who are the voice of reason. So I think, sometimes we ignore that a little bit in what we do, but I want to bring everyone back and reflect on, what's the purpose of what you do? And I think there is a lot of meaning in our profession. So that's a really, really long-winded answer to your perhaps quite simple question. But I think to me, reflecting on it, that's what keeps me really passionate about my job.
I think that completely makes sense. And even I see as a professional, no matter what you do in tax, audit, finance, or whatever you choose, I think having the purpose and the passion to do it is extremely important if we really want to thrive. Do you agree on that?
I totally agree with that. And I remember we part of my job is doing research, and we organize roundtable to hear from industry leaders. And I remember one particular discussion that I had, and we were asking, so where do you see the industry going, right? And the response was, this is a choose your own adventure kind of industry. Right, especially now compared to like 20 years ago. Very often during the time when I started 25 years ago, it is about audit, it's about tax, it's about financial reporting. Today, it is limitless. The options are just amazing. And you have sustainability, you have technology, you have risk, and there's a combination of all these different things. And I think in all these different things, the heart of it is who we are as a profession. And I think ethics is a big core proportion of that. And that's driving the value that we deliver. Many people can do the things we do. Technology can take over a lot of things that we do. But that ethics core, the knowing what is right from wrong, and really pursuing things without fear or favor, I think that is what we contribute to society as a profession.
Right. That totally makes sense. Now, one more question. You talked about diversity or variety. And I know you work with a lot of stakeholders, and they may be from different countries, different cultures. Does it also contribute to your learning from the diversity perspective?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been really fortunate working with organizations that gives me exposure to different stakeholders from around the world. And I think that cultural diversity, the need to be, I guess, being really mindful of how people think, their starting position, where they're landing, is a skill that I have sort of acquired over the years. I'm not there yet. I think it's still a learning curve. But that diversity and experience and just picking up things from different people is so meaningful and helped me grow as a profession. I remember being at the World Congress in Mumbai, and I was ashamed to say that, as a Singaporean, that was my first trip to India. Just last year was my first and only trip so far. But I see the passion of the people. I see, that I think there were like 5,000 in the room at the conference, and everyone just being, just driving to be different and to make an impression. So I get a lot of people coming up to me, talking to me, and everyone try to bring something different. And some leaves better impression than others. Shubham, like yourself, I think you did perfectly. You came up, and then you were one of those who came up to me after the panel. And people will come and say, "Oh, I enjoyed the panel. It was great. A lot of things to learn." You came up and you said, "There's these three things that I would say about you," and you offered me your book and so on, and say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this show." And I think that drives to be different, that drives to stand over and above your peers. That is something which I am really impressed about the people I met in India, including yourself. So as I said, every single experience, every time I'm in a place that's new, every time I interact with someone who's new, I learn something. So absolutely, that diversity adds on to my professional depth.
Wow, that's such a deep answer. And I think as a professional, we all need to increase how we can reach out to other people. Like, definitely, I'm glad that I could reach out to you in a way that I did. But there are many people who probably may not know that how to really reach out to people, and giving your insights, I think they will be able to see and connect how people can connect with the influential members or their dream people. But there's a strategy, because they have a lot of, like, I know your schedule is busy, hundreds of people may be reaching out to you, and you decide to choose only few people. Maybe one of the person that you chose was me for this interview. So coming back to our second question, Chun Wee, is you were in Deloitte, you were working with generally chartered accountants too, and then you switched to policy making and whatever you do today. How a professional who are maybe in their 20s or maybe 30s, they are working in big fours or maybe in a corporate, but they want to do something like this. How would you tell them to proceed so that they can also build a thriving career like you?
Well, first of all, I think you have to be really interested, right, in the profession. And you have to be interested in the particular area of policy they're looking at. You have to be deeply curious about things. I think that is a very important starting point. And as to how do you embark on a career in policy, based on my observation, based on what I see, I think there are probably two paths, and they may overlap a little bit. One is you get a formal kind of training, formal education about it, and there are many reputable institutions that offers masters in public policy, for example, and that is obviously one way you can go about acquiring the knowledge that will allow you to pursue this career. The other way, which is, I guess, the route that I took, is just firstly be immersed in that profession. So I worked 12 years in Deloitte, and it was a variety of experiences, as I said, not just in practice, but also looking behind the scenes, the technical aspects. And that gives me the different perspective, the perspective that I need to start thinking more broadly about policy in this profession and industry. And I'm glad that the opportunity came to me to then pursue that policy path. So I would say there are two ways to do it. One is going through more structured training, and the other way is to just acquire through experience. And of course, if you can get both, that will be better.
So true. So if you are somebody who wants to develop yourself into policy making, I think you start from either of the path, And hopefully you will be able to do something amazing in your career as well. Now, Chun Wee, you attend a lot of conferences, you speak with a lot of people, attend meetings, and work with people worldwide. And definitely this takes a lot of energy because you need to think a lot of things, comprehend, discuss, maybe change, maybe again come back. How do you stay energized? What is your maybe daily routine that people can follow and maybe learn from?
As you might be able to imagine, I don't actually have a lot of daily routine because of, I guess, the variety of stakeholders I need to work with, the meetings at odd hours. So apart from my work with ACCA, I'm also a board member with IAASB, which is the International Auditing Assurance Standards Board. And you have board members from around the world. And therefore, when we're looking at task force meeting, for example, board meeting, sometimes you just have to accommodate. So I remember this one time where I had a whole week of meeting from 3 to 7 a.m., right? So you just need to be ready for that. And just yesterday, I had a meeting from 7 to 10 p.m. So there is not much of a daily routine for me. But I think one thing that really keeps me going is, I think I've emphasized a few times, that passion and interest in my work. So someone may be able to read a book the entire day, or watch Netflix the entire day, or be playing game the entire day because they are very interested in it. And to me, my work is really interesting, and that really keeps me going. So that said, when I do get something of a normal daily routine, there are a few things that I try to do. First of all, I try to start early. I try to start as early as I can. Right. So I tend to be the first to be in the office when I go to office. So I'll be there at 7-ish a.m. And I find that to be really valuable. And it's been like that since I was in Deloitte. So I find that 1-2 hour space before people start streaming in, before everything starts getting busy, that time is so precious because your mind is fresh from sleep. Your mind is clear. There's no disruption. And I try to look at, okay, this is my to-do list. And these are a few things that require deep thinking. And I'll pick those things and make sure that I'm allocating that time for those deep thinking. And I find that really, really effective for me. So that's one. And the other thing is, maybe I don't have too much of a routine, but my wife is a very routine-driven person. She likes to take long walks. And especially after dinner. So when I'm at home for dinner and when she goes for a long walk, I try to do that with her. And that's really helpful because, we have we're very fortunate to have this nice canal near where we stay. And we do walk and do to and fro walks along the canal. And sometimes we'll be just catching up on things that happen during the day. Sometimes she'll be doing her own reading. I'll be doing my own thinking. And because it's autopilot, where you're walking, your feet just go left, right. You keep your mind clear to do, again, deep thinking or other stuff that you like. And it's not just work for me. Sometimes I like to do other things. And one thing that I'm really interested in is food. So I'm a foodie. I love food. And I love thinking up interesting recipe, right? So I like to put things that people may not think fit together and try to think how they work well together. So sometimes when I'm walking, I'll be thinking, okay, I'm going to put this chicken into this marinade. I'm going to put this and cut this up. And then, that occupies my mind and sort of give me a little bit of respite from work. So I think everyone needs that. It could be, spending time with your family for you. It could be spending time with your pets for you. But I think everyone needs to give themselves permission to just get away from work from time to time and just enjoying that, empty space and let it clear out so that you are ready and energized for the next task ahead. So that's not very helpful, but Shubham, that's my I guess approximation to a daily routine for you.
No, I think it's a really good answer. The reason is a lot of people whom I know, or maybe I don't know, and they're working with Big Fours, their schedule is suddenly so tied up, they probably do not get enough time to do whatever, generally is told by the spiritual gurus or the practitioners. But what you told actually gives them a scope to think if he can do it despite the schedule he has, I definitely can do something. It could be just priority. It could be just finding that one single thing that works for me. So I think that's a really good insight. You talked about your wife as well, and you have a different routine because of your work. She has a different routine. And there are many people who probably are married. And what would you say how the tuning can, pitch in so that they both have maybe their independent choices? But what is the role that you see in building a thriving career? Like, is there a support system required, or you see them as totally independent? Like, what is your perspective on that?
And I think that will be different for different people. For me, I'm just incredibly indebted to my wife. She gave up her career when our second child was born, and she just take all the responsibilities at home, and that leaves me free to sort of explore my career. So I don't have to worry about education of my kids. Are they learning well? Are they eating well? So I'm really deeply indebted to my wife for making that huge sacrifice. She was a thriving accountant as well. So it was a huge sacrifice for her. But I think it is that support system. It is about appreciating what each other do. Is about knowing each other's place at home and in the workplace, and making sure that you are leaving enough time for each other. So I'm sure you work out differently for different people, but I think there's some fundamental principles: respect, leaving time for each other, and really, making sure that you're listening when you need to listen to each other. I think that's crucially important.
Yeah, I think the emotional intelligence part also come in, which actually helps a professional either in personal life or professional life.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, because I know it's a Asian culture is almost the same to India and different countries. And I saw one of the LinkedIn posts where you actually talked about your kid, and maybe she was passionate about music. And as an Asian parent, it's like, you do the chartered accountancy, maybe a traditional background, which generally people do, but something changed for you. So what was that? And what is the lesson that probably you want to give to parents of those professionals?
I'll be deceitful and hypocritical if I say that I'm 100% behind her music career. So I need to first confess that while we are extremely proud of her, we think she's very talented and she can achieve a lot. We are still, being a very prudent and pragmatic Asian parent, still encouraging her to pursue her education first, right? So she had an opportunity to relocate to somewhere else and spend 5 years trying to make the music career work. And I must say, if I'm truly a sportive parent, I'll say, just go ahead. We'll be here for you. But that wasn't what exactly transpired. We were like, okay, finish up your education, go to university, get a degree, and do music by the side, right? That will be supported. So I first of all, I don't think I'm qualified to really answer to your question. But if I were to maybe offer a few things from my perspective, I think in order to pursue an alternative career, first of all, you need to be really, really good at what you do. And I mean really, really good, right? If everyone else is putting in 100% effort, you need to put in 150%. Now, it doesn't add up, but you know what I mean, right? So that's one. Number two, find mentors who can support you in what you're trying to achieve. And of course, depending on what that alternative career you're looking at, the kind of mentors you'll be seeking will be different. And I would say be slightly shameless in reaching out, and be bold. You will face a lot of rejections. You will face a lot of rejections, right? Maybe you reach 100 times, 200 times to get 1 or 2 responses, but that's good enough, right? Maybe that 1 or 2 will be your critical success factor, right? So reach out to mentors. Generally, people are willing and keen to help, right? Time willing. So that's the second one. And thirdly, and this is coming back to me being that pragmatic parent, have a plan B, right? So I think this is a little bit controversial because because I've definitely heard theories that you should do without plan B, because when you know that you have nothing to fall back to, you will just really push ahead and commit 100%. But to me, I think plan B is important. Maybe it's a little bit of an Asian mindset. Maybe it's a little bit of a conservative accountant mindset. But I would like you to, know that if plan A fail, you are able to fall back on something. You'll be able to pick things up and just get going again. So to me, that is actually quite important. Yeah.
Right. I think it comes from the prudence concept that's being taught in the accountancy field, that at least do something and then later on find out. And generally, that's why people do start accountancy, and later they're certain that if I start something and it fails, at least I have a degree which I can fall back and I can do something, different job. Right. So I think it's a very interesting perspective, which you gave.
Sorry to talk over you, but just one more point on that. And I think the value of being a professional accountant is that it is applicable in every single industry, in every single field, no matter what you do. So just taking my daughter's music career, for example, if she does embark on a music career, I think if she is also trained as an accountant, it will help her think about budgeting, money. These are, not necessarily the same thing as a creative pursuit. It is not something that you will naturally gel with it, but these are important components, right? You have the most successful record company, successful recording artists. They have people, a whole army behind them, making sure that the money and cents are making sense, right? So I do think that a professional accounting training is relevant and helpful in every single aspect of things.
Absolutely. And I think it gives a 360-degree perspective because of your education and the degree. And then you fall to real world and you realize maybe what I learned was not a waste. I can use it somewhere else, even though I'm pursuing something totally unconventional. And which actually brings me to the point of having skill set. Everyone wants to pursue a degree, but how do you see the role of having the skills, and not really technical skill, but apart from the technical skill, there is a public speaking skill, maybe presentation skill, maybe a personal branding skill. How do you see the importance of those skills?
No, I think they're crucially important, Shubham. And I think, you mentioned the hard skills, which was the accounting skills, etc. But one point to that, and I sort of alluded to that earlier as well, is that it keeps evolving too, right? So with the skills that are in demand today, maybe slightly different from what it was 10, 20 years ago. So technology, digital skills, sustainability, the climate awareness, and so on. So I think, first of all, just be mindful of that, and depending on which path you choose to go into, make sure that you're investing deeply in acquiring those skills, and make sure that you know how to leverage on technology to supplement what you do. Because I always see technology like, you're Superman, and that is like the radioactive spider. It beats you and it just expand and amplify your skill set. So I think that's one thing on the hard skill. And on the soft skill, you mentioned a few things which I think are all crucially important, no matter what role you're in, no matter what specialization you're in. You always need to be able to tell a story. You need to be able to communicate. So those are important. And people skill as well. You're always interacting with people. You need to be genuine. You need to be likable. Otherwise, it's difficult to get things done. So I would say those are critical as well. But I want to underscore just one other, maybe softer side of skill. And I again alluded to that earlier, which is the ethical core that we as a profession bring. And I think that is the currency of the profession. That is the absolute critical thing that we bring to any table, we bring to any discussion. So if whether you are a professional accountant in business, you are a CFO, who needs to be the voice of conscience in any board discussion, any C-level discussion. You can be the partner, you can be the most innovative, creative person. You may be able to deliver results, but at the same time, it is so critical that you hold things back when they need to be held back, and when you put in that voice of reason. One of the interesting story that I like to mention is, the CFO of Enron, Tyco, and WorldCom. These are three of the most famous accounting scandals in the world. And the CFO of all these three organizations, do we know that they each receive the CFO of the Year award from a prestigious CFO magazine, right? Just before their downfall. So they are obviously, they were really smart, right? And they were delivering great, impressive results, but they forgot, apparently, about that critical call about who they are as a professional accountant. And I think that brings to the downfall. And I always like to tell that story because I think it is important for all of us in our pursuit of excellence to not forget that bit. So that critical call, ethical call, is something which I always try to underscore in every conversation that I'm in, and I want people not to forget that. And I think that's, to me, the most critical soft skill, if you like, that we bring.
I think it was a bang-on response. The reason being, everybody talks about hard and soft skill, but being ethical person is really important. And you won't believe generally what happens when we are preparing for chartered accountancy. There's a subject called audit, and in that we have professional ethics. Now, generally people want to just do the reading and memorize it so that we can just pass the exam. But while you are actually putting the emphasis on this, it's a good reminder for all of the professionals that being ethical is really important. Your performance is definitely required, but if you're not ethical, I think the long way is not for you.
Absolutely, and this is an integral part of our professional being. And it's not something which we need to be reminded of when we need to, for example, submit our annual continuous learning hours, or when we need to click on this learning and so on. So it is something that needs to be there every single moment of your professional hours. So let's not forget that.
Absolutely. Now, one of the skill, which is public speaking, and that's where I saw you. You were so amazing, and that caught my attention. Were you always this kind of amazing magnetic speaker, or you developed it over the period of time?
You're very kind, Subham. I'm sure that there are many amazing speakers out there, and we can all learn from them. To me, it is part of my job, right? Part of being a policy person. It is about advocating for the profession. It is about speaking to the profession to help everyone think ahead. So it is a core part of what we do. I love speaking. So maybe that's what make it interesting for me. And to me, there are a few things that makes speaking I guess good and successful for people. And if I may, I'll share maybe a couple of things. And I'll look at it from two parts. One is content and one is delivery, right? From a content perspective, I always, and people say it all the time, but it's difficult to make it into practice. But you need to listen to yourself. You need to see yourself from the audience perspective. And that is so critical. It's easy to say, but not necessarily easy to do.
Absolutely.
And I always see myself, right? I see myself as a lazy, not very intelligent audience member. And I'll sit there and what can you do to interest me, right? And if you come out here and tell me 1,000,001 deep things, I'm not going to be able to absorb it. I will do better reading it, right? But when you're presenting it, I can't absorb 1,000,001 things. At most 3 key messages, at most 5 key messages. And you'd be lucky if I can take away 5 key messages. So my message is always trim it down. Make sure that you are bringing it to the core. Know what is the message you want to convey and be very focused in conveying that, right? So that is a key part of it, looking at it from the audience perspective, trim it down, be very focused. Storytelling. Human beings are tuned to listen to stories. I just shared, for example, the story of the 3 CFO, right? Yeah. When I talk about sustainability, I like to tell the story of this 12-year-old boy who is in California. When the dad asked him, who would you vote for? Would you vote for Obama or McCain? And that was like many years ago. He said, oh, I would like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Terminator, to be my president. And a story like that get people to sit up, oh, that's interesting. And then you reveal, oh, the boy said that he want Arnold Schwarzenegger to be president because he's doing so much for California, for the air, for the soil, for the water. If he become president, he will do that for the whole of USA. And this is coming from a very environmental sustainability angle. And again, it's a story that really drives to your heart. So I think tell story, find relevant story to tell, be authentic. That will get people engaged. And also, I think one other part is don't be afraid to deviate from the script. So you may come in with a very clear goal, okay, I'm going to say these few things, but you need to be reacting to things that are happening around you as well. Sure. So for example, you talk about World Congress. I was there. So apart from the panel that I moderated, and it was a fantastic panel because I have fantastic panelists. Apart from that, I actually was engaged in a couple of other speaking things. And it was, for example, a launch event for an ACCA, CANZ, PwC report called Performance Management and Planning Paradigm, right? So I was moderating a panel. And one key message from that report was about agility in planning. And what happened on that day was that, we were supposed to play a video, right? And then after the video, I'm supposed to go out and start introducing my panelists. And one of them actually was someone whom you have interviewed before, Sanjay Dukhani. Yeah, so the Uganda Standard Chartered CEO. So he's a member of ACCA, and then we invited him to speak at that panel as well. So what happened was the video didn't play, or the video was playing, but the sound didn't come out. So that was a technical glitch. And after a while, we realized that it's not going to work out. So what I did, I went out on stage, I took the mic and say, this is the perfect proof that things doesn't always go according to plan. And that was the perfect segue into the panel discussion. So I think just, again, be agile and reacting to the environment, and that get people to sort of sit up and listen as well. So that's on the content. The other part is on delivery. And I remember, there was this, my very first big scale presentation. It was maybe about 10 years ago. It was in front of about 600 people. And it was a very important presentation for me. After doing it, I came down from stage and people tell me, oh, that was so smooth and it was so effortless. And I have to tell them, well, the smooth and effortless came from days and weeks of preparation, right? And I recently heard this one theater actor who said, well, every 1 minute on stage, that entails 3 hours or 3 hours of preparation or something like that, or 3 days of preparation. So it's just a huge number, right? So, and I think that's true. You may not need 3 days for every minute, but you definitely need to just drill it in again and again and again, so that when you start doing it, it looks effortless. It looks smooth, right? Because that is the whole part of preparation that goes on behind it. And as part of preparation, it would be great if you can find people who are friendly and critical with you, who can honestly give you your time and tell you honest feedback. If you don't have that, even if you have that, record it, listen to yourself speak. And everyone is their worst critics, I can tell you that. And when you have the worst critic, just looking at every single movement you make, every single expression, every single word you say, and making detailed note and correcting yourself, I think you will get to a place where you will be good in front of people. So there are multiple things. And I must say, this is such a fulfilling thing to do. Looking back at my 25 years of career, and just thinking of the highlights, almost every single piece of highlight is about a public speaking opportunity. So I would say go seek that out and try to do it. And that is fulfilling and it helps you grow as a professional as well.
Yeah, I think that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask, that does it open any door of opportunity? And you rightly said it does. So
Yeah.
the very specific reason is I'm an introvert and I know a lot of chartered accountants or other professionals who are introverts. So they have a fear of public speaking because there are a lot of people there. But I think in the long term, when we develop the skills, I think it will result into something longer opportunities.
Yeah, and I say I enjoy public speaking doesn't mean that I do not fear public speaking, right? I think every single individual, before you go on stage, your heart will go pumping. That is just a natural reaction. But what keeps you calm once you're on stage is that whole depth of preparation, right? And I remember one of my mentors told me before, you can never over prepare for a presentation.
Right.
So, and I'm an introvert as well, right? Maybe I'm a mix, but yeah. I think every time I go on stage, I just enjoy the crowd, I enjoy the reaction, I enjoy the smile that people give me, and I really would encourage everyone to try to seek those opportunities out for yourself, because that is incredibly fulfilling.
Wow, that's a powerful learning and a lesson as well for all the professionals who want to build their thriving career. And definitely when you go internationally as well, I think this is one of the skills that will help you to leave your charm on people. Now, one last question before we actually conclude this. What are one or two things that you would like to have as an advice for professionals who either are wanting to continue in their existing job or maybe want to start something different, maybe in non-conventional area? What would be your advice so that they can continue to thrive and become a leader like you?
I think, at the heart of it, it is about being a good person who wants to find meaning. It sounds a little bit vague, right? But, I think eventually, ultimately it is about knowing what you want. And you may be wanting to go path B instead of path A. And you definitely need to put in a tremendous amount of hard work in order to build yourself up professionally, technically, so that you can pursue that. But whatever path you pursue, I think ultimately to be a successful human being, you need to be a kind person. You need to be a decent individual. I'm sure there are successful people who are not very pleasant. But most of the people I met who are deeply successful, they are humble. They are always out to help people. They're always out to mentor people. Yeah. And they are always giving advice. I try to do a little bit of that. I give unsolicited advice all the time. And I know maybe out of the 10 advice I give, 9 of them will be disregarded, or people will like, what are you trying to do? That's not what I'm seeking. But I know that out of the 10, there'll be one advice that will land successfully, that people will appreciate and that will help someone. And I think that's enough. So I think overall it's about being there to support others. And when you have a support system, eventually it will come back to you as an individual, and that will help you to be successful as well. The other thing that I would say is always be ready. And I feel that I'm lucky. I get different opportunities. And I've confessed to one of my mentors before, I feel that I'm so lucky. I don't know whether I deserve it. And she told me, well, you get opportunities, other people get opportunities as well, but not everyone is ready. And the difference is that you are ready, right? And you shouldn't beat yourself up for getting this opportunity because you are ready to seize it. And I think, opportunities may come. It may not come for a long time, but, just be curious about things, just build yourself up technically, be competent, so that when the opportunity comes, you are ready to seize it and to perform. That will be, I guess, one of my clear advice. And going back to what we discussed in depth earlier about the ethical call, let's not forget it. And I want to just underscore it once again, because that is crucially important to being a successful professional.
Yeah, I think it's very powerful. And what you mentioned, it's good to be prepared and not come the opportunity. rather than having the opportunity but you are not prepared for it. So that will be the major guilt when you have the opportunity you were seeking for so long, but now you are not prepared. So I think getting prepared and then getting the opportunity will be a definitely boost, because you'll be able to showcase your skills, your knowledge, whatever you have got up till now. So I think that sums up our interview. Chun Wee, thank you so much for your time and valuable insights. And I'm sure people who are watching this interview, they will get a lot of nuggets and insights. And if you do, please share your key learnings in the comment section so that Mr. Chun Wee can also see the comments and he also knows that he made a very big difference in your life. Thank you so much, Mr. Chun Wee.
Thank you so much, Shubham, and thank you for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much एपिसोड देखने के लिए। सबसे पहली चीज मैं आपको वेलकम करना चाहूंगा अगर आप पहली बार ये चैनल या एपिसोड देख रहे हैं तो। सेकंड चीज आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि व्हाई आई रिकॉर्ड दिस एपिसोड। सबसे बड़ा रीजन है कि जब मैं भी अपने इनिशियल पीरियड में था करियर के, नोबडी वाज देयर टू गाइड मी, टू शो मी द पाथ। एंड जब मैं अपने मेंटोर्स से मिला और मैंने और सक्सेसफुल लोग देखे, मैंने सोचा कि ना कि उनकी विजडम को अपने तक रखा जाए बट आपके साथ भी शेयर किया जाए। एंड इसी मकसद के साथ मैंने वो रिकॉर्ड करना चालू किया एंड पब्लिश करना चालू किया। अभी तक मैंने काफी सारे एपिसोड कर चुका हूँ, आगे भी बहुत सारे एपिसोड आने वाले हैं। सो मेक श्योर अगर आपको ये एपिसोड पसंद आया तो आप दूसरे एपिसोड भी देखें, उनसे कुछ सीखें एंड डेफिनेटली डू शेयर विद अस। अगर आपको उससे कोई भी चेंज अपने करियर में या लाइफ में मिलता है तो वी विल बी मोर देन हैप्पी टू नो दैट। एंड रिमेंबर, यू आर बोर्न टू थ्राइव एंड इट्स योर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू डू एनीथिंग एंड एवरीथिंग to make it happen, and I'm here to help you. I'm on a mission to enable 1 lakh professionals to build a thriving career. Thank you.